Hey, so in this video, I'm going to share with you the 5 different tactics that you can utilize to grow your credit score as fast as possible. Now, the big issue with the credit score is that they usually take a really long time to be built up. But in this video, I'm going to share with you a few different tactics that you can use to really grow your that a lot of faster. So if you need to do the boost in the next 30 to 60 days, 90 days, I think this video might help you out. So without any further ado, let's get into the video. Right, so let's start with the most important ones that can really boost your score very quickly. I'm taking to 30 to 45 days, maybe 60 days, and you can boost your score very quickly. This is the great for the people who have no credit history or possibly a bad credit history. So anything that below 600 isn't necessarily too good for the credit score. Now, it's a case if you have the bad credit scores, you can build it up over time, and that's the key here. So the best way to do this is the very short period of the time is usually work. I'm going to share with you a few tips with here that you're going to want to be careful of, and so they then you sort of the wave through this road and make sure that you get to the right places you need to be. So the one of the best ways to do this is by becoming the authorized users under somebody else's account. Now I am going to leave a couple of the links down below. Some sources from the discovered come from the Credit Karma, just to sort of give you the more information about this, because there's a lot of the misconceptions about becoming the authorized users, and now you can kind of the piggyback of somebody else's credit scores, but it's totally possible if you do it right. So let me explain this to you. You can actually come up the authorized users under somebody else's accounts. So this could be your parents, this could be your sisters, your brothers, maybe even your kid, if they have the really good credit scores with the one credit history, or the friend. And if they are good credit, I would say anywhere from the 700 and the 60 or above, or maybe 750 and above. What you can do is they can actually add you as authorized users. Now, what's going to happen is we're going to get the credit card with your name and you but it's under the account, so they are actually legally liable to pay off your bills in the same, and your personally as authorized users aren't liable for this. Now, one of the biggest questions that people have thought, they say, wait a minute, if it was the person who is letting somebody become the authorized users under me, I am going to be affected from their poor credit history, and the truth is you are not going to be so. If say your parents were adding you as the authorized users, your parents' credit is not going to be affected by the you being there as the authorized users. Just keep that in mind and shares that with them. If you are trying to convince somebody to add you to their credit card as the authorized users, now you want to be careful with co-signing. This is another method that people use, co-signing. It can kind of create some problems, because what you're going to have to do eventually is close that account, and that can hit your credit scores a little bit. We can talk about more about co-signing and the negatives of that in the future. It's not always bad, but usually I think becoming authorized users could be a better for the a lot of the people. So here's the part where you really have to pay attention. So what can usually happen, and what does typically happen, is that you as authorized user as well, you will get the reported of the major credit bureaus, the people who score credit scores, you will actually get response separately from the person who added you as the authorized users. So all of the sudden you basically pay back of the person who signed up for you. So if you are the credit scores of the 800 and your authorized users, under them there is the good chances, assuming that they report you separately, which typically does happen, that your score will go up tremendously. I am taking 50 points, maybe even the 100 points, sometimes even more. Sometimes hear stories of the people jumping even 120, 130 points in literally just 30 days from this happening. So you can pick guy back of this, but this is where you really need to pay attention here, because this isn't always the case. See, after the subprime mortgage crisis of 2007, FICO sort of changed the way that they actually score credit scores and how they actually look at them, and now they actually weigh the authorized users piggyback method a little bit less. So what can happen here just because your scores shoots up? So because you sort of the piggybacking of these personal credit scores. So that can happen through is that say your score goes from the 580 to 690 or something, right? So your score goes from the pretty bad to pretty decent. So say shoots up to the 690 and you apply for a new credit card or you apply for the mortgage or then auto loan. Well, what can happen with some of the banks, they can look deeper into it and say, wait a minute, you're just authorized users, you never had the credit card, but where you actually to pay off yourself, and they can look deeper into it and they can actually check do you for some of those loans. So it's not always the best methods, but it's a great way to boost its initially, and sometimes they do use old methods for the pulling credit, and they are not really looking to deep into their are just kind of looking at the numbers. But like I said, ever since 2007 they have been getting a little bit smaller with that, but it's still the great way to boost it very quickly. Another method you could use while you're going to this authorized user piggy check methods, you can also open the secured line of the credit separately to sort of the help boost it a little bit more. So that's just really important tips that a lot of the people don't even know. It really exists if you have really poor credit or you have no credit. Definitely look into that once. It's definitely a tremendous way to boost your credit as fast as possible. Note there's 4 other strategies that you really should be aware of if you are trying to grow your credit scores as fast as possible. And the next one is another things that a lot of the people don't realize you can do, and this is by actually writing the credit bureaus. I'm talking about the physical letters, writing it to 3 major credit bureaus and disputing central things on your own credit report. So just to give you an example of this, there was the man who got divorced and his wife, it was settled by the scores that she legally owed him the certain amount of the money for the creating the payment that was under his name, and she didn't pay him, so he couldn't pay off the loans, so he defaulted on the loans. Hopefully the fault that they have defaulted on the loans, and then he kind of screwed over this, and his credit scores taken. Well, he actually disputed his this, and he got into the taken bite of the right into the credit bureaus. So here's the different things, but then there's something smaller things with the there's like the misses payment that you might kind of miss, but they happened 3 years ago. You can actually write the letters to dispute this if they were you. I would Google this. There's all kinds of the PDFs and the different outlines that you could use, kind of the just like the fill the bank type of things that you could use to send these letters to credit bureaus. And as soon as this happens, as soon as you get some of these old things that are the sort of the dragging down to your credit scores, as soon as you get them off, all the sudden your credit scores can really shoot up very quickly. I'm taking 30 to 60 days, and it can shoot up very quick. Now, another way to keep your credit scores growing in the short run is to avoid hard pulls or hits on your credit. And this is really important to say that 3 months from now or months from now, you're thinking about getting the new car and you want to get the $20 thousand loans for your new car. Say it's 45 days or the 60 days from now. Well, you're going to want to plan this out a couple of the months before and not getting any hard pulls on your credit. So that's this can mean it's don't try to open up more credit cards 60 days before trying to get the car loan, or don't try to get a car loan right before you try to get a home loan. So there's just a couple of examples. There's of how they could negatively affect your credit, because every time somebody is doing a pull on your credit, every time that somebody is checking your credit and in a hard pull, not a soft pull, there's a difference there's but with the hard pull on your credit, it's actually going to decrease your credit scores sometimes 10, 15, 20 points or more for the hard pull on your credit score. So in the short run, keep it in mind, try to avoid those hard pulls. In the long run, it doesn't really matter so much. If you are thinking getting a house next year, it doesn't really matter. If you opened a credit card now, it might dip your score by the 10 or 20 points, but not too much. So I would worry about it in the long run. No. Now to more here, really incredibly important. If you are trying to get that 800 credit scores or 850, same million people now have the 850 credit scores, but it's just difficult actually to get that. There's two really important keys that you need to understand here, and this is the keeping your authorizations incredibly low. I'm talking anywhere from the 1 to maybe 10%. Once you get over the higher than 10%, that's when you're going to start to get into the territory where these credit card companies aren't actually going to find you a little bit more risky, and so your score is going to decrease either slightly. So what I try to do, I try to keep my credit utilization growth 5%, maybe 3 or to 4% is pretty good as well. And what this means is that if you have to say you have the credit limit over the $10,000, well, you're probably going to wanted to pay maybe $500 or less per month out of your $10,000 limit per month, just to keep that utilization really low. Once you get up to the 10, 20, 30, 40% or more, that's when you're going to see your credit scores start to sweep a little bit. So keep it very low. This makes up the very large portion of your FICO scores. Just keep that in mind. Now, the last one that I wanted to share with you is also very important. And this is simply just paying off the minimum payment every month. Sometimes we will see the people who risk a rack of the $3,000 in the credit card bills for the particular months, and then they will say, I don't know, there are $3,000, I can pay it off, so they will just kind of forget about it and just say, what I will pay off the next month, and they don't pay the minimum payment. And as soon as you don't pay the minimum payment, it counts as the default, and your credit score is going to get hit really hard for not paying off that minimum payment. So if you are going to carry balances, but I wouldn't recommend doing because you're paying a 20-25% interest sometimes to those balances on your credit. Well, if you are going to do that, at least pay off this minimum payments every month is just so incredibly important to do that in the foolish mistakes not to. And it's going to hurt you for the quite literally years to come if you just miss that one payment. That I do is to set up the auto payments directly from my bank to my credit cards, so that I will never ever forget about it, and that saves me a lot of the worry instead of you not trying to time it perfectly and paying off your credit card right before it's due. To those are 5 different tactics that you could utilize to increase your credit score as fast as possible. I think the biggest problems people have, they want to increase it like the next weeks or the 2 weeks, and it's not that easy to do that. I think the first two methods that I shared with you are the very important, and those are probably the best ways to increase it in the short run. But in reality, it's going to take a long time to build the credit. It really is. So thanks for watching in this video, and I will see you next time.